Welcome to Shoot the Breeze, a podcast that celebrates the messiness of life, relationships, and Christianity, featuring my wife Lacey and myself, Nathan. It's creatively titled because it will be just us shooting the breeze, sometimes with guests, while occasionally saying something important. We hope you enjoy. Hi, Phil.
Hello, Nathan.
We are back.
We're back.
And we're in chapter 12 through 14, right? Yeah, 12 through 14.
12 through 14.
And I'm excited about this because this is where a lot of the crazy visions, the crazy creatures, I like to bring, again, we're going to use scripture to define who and what these creatures are. We're not just going to make stuff up.
Oh, well, maybe a little bit.
There's one that I might be filling in the blanks. I'll
let's
say it
have
that
some
way.
fun with this one. There's a lot of fun to be had here.
You know what, though?
We won't name names. We're just going to make suggestive comments.
Oh, I will name. No, what names would we name?
I mean, there's a few names we haven't named that are in the dispensational camp that are really.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Really out there.
Yeah, well,
Some local, some not.
So anyways, we're in chapter 12, and I want to look at chapter 12 as we were saying. Let me go back to one of the. Here we go. This. So we have the 7 seals, and right now we're in the middle of, I believe it's the 7 trumpets.
This is the 7th trumpet has just been sounded.
Okay, so right here, here's what I believe. Why are you not? Oh, I know why. There we go. If we look at the 7th trumpet between the 7 bowls, I call chapter 12 a parenthetical chapter. It's like a commercial break, right? So destruction, commercial break as to, hold on, let's zoom out, get the meta picture of what happened with the Messiah, and then we're going to zoom back into the 7 bowls. Again, taking the viewpoint that this is regarding the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple, but more poignantly, specifically, it is the eradication of the Old Testament law, the Jewish hierarchy, religious, legalistic system. Do you need help?
I always need help, Nathan, but I can work a wingnut. My OCD's just kicked in a little bit.
Yeah, no,
I can't have a little floppy mic.
Well, okay. So chapter 12 is a parenthetical chapter. Zooming out, going, wait, here's the Messiah. Here's what happened spiritually behind the scenes. And then we're going to zoom back in to the destruction of Jerusalem.
Yeah. So you and I have talked about this little graphic several times about, and I think I said last week, the more times I read this, the more I'm just, I have new ideas, and sure. I'm like, it could be this, it could be that, But as I've been sojourning through the Bruce Gore commentary on this, I really like what he had to say about this. So his opinion is the 7 seals and the 7 trumpets are as linear as you can be in apocalyptic prophetic writing. So the seals and the trumpets, that's one version of the story. So okay, we're going to add another theory here. Yeah. So you're saying it's that. Yeah. So the 7 seals is an identification of who the lamb is. Okay. It's the lion lamb, whichever it is. Yeah. The right to do what's about to be done. Okay. The justification for it. Okay. This is as promised in the law and the prophets. And then finally, more so the trumpets than the seals is an actual walkthrough of that destruction and judgment that the Messiah, the first coming of the Messiah, was going to bring on Israel.
Okay, sorry. So you're saying, I have this wrong. So you're saying it's more actually like that, where it's the same thing repeated, but from a different perspective.
Kind of. I don't think it's repeated. It's more like it's just one long story. Oh, but it's told first from the perspective of we've got who can open the book of judgment?
Right.
The Lion of the tribe of Judah can. So we established the authority. We established the heavenly sitting.
Yeah.
Where is this judgment coming from? It's coming from the throne, right?
Okay.
This Lamb is now seated on the throne of God. It is God, and then we're walking through that destruction and judgment, and He is all the gifts He's given. There's some Garden of Eden symbolism there. There's obviously a lot of the Jacob, Isaac, Moses story. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Moses. All of the bits of the Exodus and the sojourning and the stories in Egypt, all of it's bound up in that 7 trumpets. Mm-hmm. And it's all destroyed, as if it's okay. This is not just complete. This is almost unmade.
Yeah.
Is my words, not his.
Yeah.
And then the bowls, as he sees it, are an abbreviated and yet somehow more detailed. Like he's adding detail to places that didn't have detail before.
Okay.
And then chapter 12 is as you've rightly said, an interlude where he is discussing what the Messiah did, and both the actual coming of the Messiah, but also the prophesied coming of the Messiah. The woman in the sky, we'll get to in a minute. Does she represent Eve? Does she represent Hannah, Ruth, Mary? She's all of them.
Yeah.
She's every time God chose one woman to continue that line.
Right. Right.
And how they, if you look at who's the prostitute in Jericho.
Oh, okay. I was going to say 17, but yeah.
Right. Her house is, the only one that that survives the destruction. She's in the lineage of King David.
Yeah.
But it's that symbolism, excuse me, not symbology.
Yeah.
Any Boondock Saints fans out there will get that.
I was going to say, that reminded me of Angels and Demons, or...
Never saw it.
No, it's the Dan Brown symbology, the symbologist.
I have no idea.
Dan Brown, the author, he did the Da Vinci Code. That one? Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't watch it.
Phenomenal author. No, phenomenal author, though.
Did you read it?
Oh, yeah. I read it and watched the movie.
You read a fiction novel?
I did.
That's what you read?
The subject matter was so intriguing to me.
Okay. We're moving on.
Phil's upset at
I'm
me.
going to have to write a new disappointments letter. All the great literature out there, and that's what you chose to waste your time on.
It's really good, though. Okay.
But the other thing, all right, now this is for all the true fans out there. As I'm going through this, and as I'm listening to the commentaries both from you and from Bruce Gore and a couple others that we've shared back and forth, and some of the backdrop, that's only understood to the Jewish audience. We were just talking about the idea of the divine council and these offices within heaven and these lesser, for lack of a better word, demigods. Yeah,
that's what they are. That's actually the biblical term is God.
Right.
Yeah.
And he even Moses in Deuteronomy addresses this idea that these lesser gods exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of a sudden, as I'm going through that, I'm like, man, Tolkien was really well read.
Yeah.
Because I start as I'm going through this, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is in the Silmarillion and that's in this, and it just made my heart so happy.
Which I'm not a novel fan, and so that's why he's upset at me, but to reference Tolkien, it's like, okay. So you're saying, and this makes sense, this bears witness, because the trumpets come out of the seals.
Right.
And so that makes sense that it's one linear thing, and then the bowls are something maybe different, even a different perspective, or something different.
It's like it slows down.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, we've discussed that this happened. And this is the prophecy behind it's happening. Let's delve into a little bit of the ugliness of how it happened.
I like that view. I'll take it.
It's a maybe.
There's 3 views there. There's 4 views right here. So, right? Boom.
Yeah.
Okay. 4 views. All of them, I think, bear a bit of examining.
It's probably one of those things where God steps back and he's like, no, that you got it.
Yes. Is it this, or this? Yes.
Yeah.
He does that. we're in chapter 12, which we're going to be going 12, 13, 14 in this episode. And we're going to look at first of all, chapter 12, verse 1. A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and on her head was a crown of 12 stars, and she was with child, and she cried out, being in labor and in pain to give birth. So, who's the woman? Well, let me back up. A sign appeared in heaven. Remember, revelation is symbolic. It is not literal.
So you shouldn't expect to see this particular star pattern in the sky?
You are delving into areas that I both agree with, but we don't have time for. Because the birth of Jesus was also prophesied in the stars, which there's a phenomenal video called the Bethlehem star, which goes into the science and date of the alignment of all the constellations.
Oh, that's the one that used that NASA program?
Yep.
Okay,
So,
I've seen that. That's amazing.
yeah. Really neat. Really neat. I do recommend that. It's called the Bethlehem star, I believe.
I think so.
Yeah. Anyways, so here's what I'm saying, though, Phil, is John is using, right, there is a real sun, there is a real moon, there is a real stars, right? Like, yes, those things are real. I'm not saying they're made up illuminaries in the sky.
Right, but I mean, as far as a very large portion of the American church is looking for a sign in the sky.
Oh, my goodness.
Right?
Or, I would argue, perhaps already took place.
Hold on.
Okay.
Pick up what I'm putting down here.
Okay.
How do you defend this argument against a futurist view?
So here's how. Okay, Phil, I never prepped you for this. So
That's okay.
This is a quiz. Ready? Open book quiz. Where's the first time that you see the sun and the moon and the stars worshiping something?
I mean, immediately when you said the first time, I was like, Genesis, but now that's obviously not going to work. The sun and the moon and the stars. This is terrible.
I put you on the spot because
It's got to be in one of the Isaiah prophecies.
Not Isaiah. Go way further back. Almost towards the beginning.
So it's Moses. Joseph.
There you go.
It's Joseph. Okay.
Hold on.
Oh.
So who does the sun, the moon, and the 12 stars or 11 stars at that point? Who do they represent?
Well, it's got to be Israel, right?
Israel, right?
The 12 stars, yes. Undoubtedly Israel.
Yeah. But it says specifically the sun and the moon and the 12 stars, or 11 stars, because the 11 was his brothers, and then you have Jacob being the sun and his mom being the moon.
Oh.
And so this is the first time that you get an explicit definition of sun, moon, stars bowing, and they all represent Israel. And so I would argue what John is riffing off of is that very first vision of what Joseph meant as the messianic figure for Israel in that day. And so you have a woman clothed with the sun, the moon, and under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. To me, the woman is Israel, like the faithful Israel, right? Because now we're moving into the parts of Revelation where it's going to be contrasting two different women. You have the faithful woman and the unfaithful woman. You have the faithful Israel and unfaithful Israel, the prostitute Israel. This, I argue, is pointing toward, faithful Israel is pregnant with a Messiah figure.
So you don't see them as the same?
What?
The two Israels, as you're putting it, the two women here, because I, explicitly over and over again, I think this is not unique to any of the prophets. You have Israel being lumped together and said, you have played the harlot, right? So is it this idea that, Israel waiting for that Messiah, right, joyfully accepts him and then plays the harlot after?
No, it is, you have, like in Galatians, one woman, Sarah, the faithful woman, and you have the unfaithful woman, Hagar. Now, Hagar is not unfaithful. What it is, it's contrasting two systems of thought. It's contrasting the Sarah thought, faith, and the Hagar thought, works. Right? Two systems within Israel. And so that's why I put Israel here, this faithful woman, is the Sarah woman, where you have unfaithful, or the prostitute is Hagar, which is the law, the worship of the law, not worship of God. And so that's why I'm separating those two figures out.
Okay.
And I think Scripture bears witness to that.
No, I'm not necessarily playing the devil's advocate.
No,
here, but just let's, because this one, these two verses, right, set up the whole next chapter, this whole chapter.
Right. Yep.
And another idea that I've heard recently is this clothed with the sun, is that's also prophetic verbiage for the glory of God's around them.
Now, totally. Here's the thing, is we have, number one, a sign in heaven. So remember, we're going back to, these are figurative languages, metaphors, symbols of real things. So throughout, especially the minor prophets, but Isaiah 60 verse 1, Malachi 4 verse 2, you have the sun representing righteousness. So these in and of themselves have meanings within that, right? You have the moon, possibly a reference to God's reflective nature of God's people being a reflection of him. So this comes from, obviously Genesis 1:26 or 12:1-3, where his people are supposed to reflect him. The sun could be a representation of Jesus, the moon being our representation of reflecting his glory to others, and then the 12 stars being the 12 tribes, or the fullness of the faithful people, and then the child being faithful Israel. Like you were saying, maybe specifically Mary, who is pregnant with the Messiah, or these other faithful women throughout Israel. But yeah, that's each one of these has its own.
But okay, maybe a point of disagreement between, because I certainly see this not just representing the faithful Israel as in the church, or the righteous dead, whatever, but this to me just represents Israel. The whole Israel is crying out for the Messiah. Later, right, that we're going to deal with the ones that reject him, right, very, very quickly.
And that's what I'm saying, is I think only the faithful ones are the ones who are crying out for the Messiah, not a Messiah figure to save them from Rome. I'm talking about the genuine. So you have Mary who represents faithful Israel.
Right.
She's crying out for a Messiah, and she's also trusting who Jesus is. And I think that's where throughout Jesus' ministry, what was blurred, maybe what you're referring to is this, and throughout Jesus' ministry, you start to see this separation of, these are really the faithful, and these are the ones who want that control. And I'm not even saying the religious leaders, people who want law, because law makes sense, and we want a Messiah who will come in with law and order over Rome. I mean, that's one of the things that Jesus says. He goes, I did not come to bring peace. I came to bring the sword, to bring separation. And so that's where I'm like, that's kind of what I see is, yes, it is Israel, but what we see in Jesus' ministry is the division of, here's the faithful, here's the unfaithful.
Okay. All right. I think we're good on that.
Yeah. So then verse 3, then another sign appeared in heaven, and behold, again, sign, symbol, I cannot say this enough, appeared in heaven, meaning this is spiritual, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his heads were 7 diadems, or crowns, and his tail swept away a third of the stars in heaven and threw them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she gave birth, he might devour her child. Okay, so let me draw this out here. Let me go to, where am I? I need a new. Here we go.
Fortunately, we're gonna know the answer to this in about 800 years. So
what? Know the answer to what?
Well, I mean, creation will be complete on the 7th day, 7,000th year.
Oh, you believe that too?
You know what? That's not the worst idea I've ever heard.
I I have a sneaking suspicion, okay? I'm not going to go all Bible code on people, but I think it is interesting. So let me draw this out. We have this dragon who, it's kind of like a snaky figure, right? Kind of curled up. That's my curled up snake, okay?
Okay.
And it has a tail like that, and it has these thorns. How many thorns does it say?
Thorns? Horns.
Horns. How many horns?
It has 10
3,
horns.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 horns. And with 7, what is it? 1, 2, 3. This is perfectly to scale too. Okay. Right.
Careful of this.
No, these are snakes. These are snaky.
Oh, those are heads.
Yeah, those
Okay.
are heads. Okay.
Okay. Have you ever seen a hydra?
Yeah.
Because I really think that's the image here, is the hydra.
Sure.
Because it's a dragon, not a snake.
Oh my god. Okay. Phil, it's this.
I know, we just talked about this.
Phil's gonna make me get on soapboxes that I don't need to get on. All right.
Somebody's got to make this podcast interesting.
So we have a snake here. There. We have a 7-headed snake with each one having a crown, right?
That is my worst nightmare right there.
Yeah. All right. Those are crowns. It's a 7-headed snake with 10 horns. Horns being power division, and then 7 being complete, like the fullness.
How come you don't have one of those heads as
What? As a what?
wounded?
Wounded?
I was going to use a different word.
Because that's not that. That's not that one.
No, it is that one.
No, it's not.
Oh.
This is Satan.
Oh, my bad.
Right?
Sorry.
It explicitly. Whoops.
Yes, it does.
So
Explicitly says
we
it.
have
My bad, I jumped ahead.
we have the dragon or the serpent, if you will, dragon, being equal to Satan. There we go. Okay. Now I'm going to save room because there's other things. And in this, right, they're crying out, they're longing for Messiah. We have the red dragon, Satan, the accuser, the prosecutor. This is the devil, the ancient serpent. Let's go back to our scriptures here.
It says that later in the chapter.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So then, and she gave birth, so faithful Israel gave birth to a son, a male child, who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up to God in his throne, and then the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had been placed, prepared by God, so that there she would be nourished for 1,260 days. So 1,260 days. How long is that, Phil?
3.5 years.
Oh, interesting. Right.
Okay, so let's talk about this one for a minute. All right, so I'm good.
This is why, hold on. This is why this is faithful Israel, not unfaithful Israel.
I'm good with the dragon.
Cool.
We're gonna we'll deal with him in a minute.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, so when I think of this story right here, she gave birth to a son, rule nations. Okay, obviously Jesus.
Yep.
And then the woman flees to a place in the wilderness prepared by God, and
after the child was caught up.
Right. Okay, and obviously right there we have this idea, post crucifixion.
Right.
However, I immediately, every time I read this, the first thing I think of is Herod trying to kill all the children in Bethlehem. Or he does kill all the children in Bethlehem, minus one, obviously. So is there a little bit of that in this story? Is there a little bit of symbolism there?
Yeah, I think so that when she gave birth, he might devour her child.
Right.
So that's the Herod piece.
Right. So, but I mean, that's not just an erroneous similarity. That in your opinion, is it intended to invoke that imagery when you read it?
I think, okay, Satan tried to devour. And who did Satan try to devour him through? Number 1, Herod.
The law.
And number 2, Rome.
Or false prophet.
We'll get there.
Oh, my bad.
No, Herod's the false prophet.
Well, you know what I mean.
Anyway.
I'm sorry.
Right. So it's the two. So the two ways that we see already taking place that the dragon has power is through this false Israel or unfaithful Israel and through Rome. Right. And because those are the two who tried to kill the Messiah when he was a toddler,
Gotcha.
right? And then we have them. So then the woman fled into the wilderness where she had been placed by God, so that there she would be nourished for 3.5 years.
Okay, and obviously we've talked about 3.5 years has come up multiple times.
Right.
Specifically with the war in Israel being approximately 3.5 years from AD 66 to AD 70. Where does that apply here?
Exactly. So remember how last time we talked about, is it Gall?
Gallus.
Gallus. Yeah, Gaius.
It's Gaullus, I believe.
He's a Roman general, comes in and tries to take over Jerusalem, fails for multiple reasons, weather, the fall season. Jonathan of one of the zealots actually kind of conquered some of the battles, or won some of the battles.
Destroyed most of the Roman army, and that's what, of course, gives zealots their control.
Right. And so like what we were saying last time is Matthew 24, Luke 21, Mark 13, is the story of Jerusalem being surrounded, right? Jesus says, when you see Jerusalem surrounded, flee to the hills. Well, how in the world do you flee to the hills, to the wilderness,
right?
When they're surrounded? And
that word wilderness there, it's also interpreted desert, isn't it?
Yeah.
I thought so.
So how do you do that with being surrounded? Well, obviously there has to be a break for you to get out. Mm-hmm. So that is where the Roman army flees, and that's where all the faithful Israel goes, I remember Jesus saying something about this. Let's go.
Right. And this is, 35 years later?
Yeah.
Approximately.
Just under 40 years a generation, which this will happen to this generation. Matthew 24. So
this is a double innuendo.
Yeah. Double entendre. Wait, why is it double? What do you mean?
Well, I mean, just the idea that you have the threat to him as a child,
which is
right. Mary and Joseph flee to the wilderness to go to Egypt for 3 years.
Yep.
Which is the dispensational view is absolutely that it is referring to Mary and Joseph and Jesus fleeing to Israel.
Oh, I would say no. I would say verse 6 is explicitly not, because Jesus is already gone. The Son has already ascended. Well, verse 6, I would say,
not what it says, Nathan. It says he was caught up, and Mary caught him up in her arms, and they went to Egypt. That's but because I mean, for whatever reason, that is the interpretation I grew up with.
Right. No,
this is about Mary and Joseph fleeing to Egypt when Christ is 2 years old approximately.
But that's where her child was caught up to God and to his throne.
That's the promise. That caught up to God.
Except for it explicitly says in Acts, he was caught up and sitting at the right hand of the Father.
Oh, is that what it says? Acts where?
It's in Acts 7 when Stephen's being stoned. Jesus is at the right hand of the Father.
It's like Acts 5, I think. 4 or 5?
Yeah, 4. 4 is Stephen, right?
So that's what I'm here to enrage you and bring out this abstract Bible knowledge.
But so that's what I'm saying is, again, no, she is no child right now.
Right.
Because he's been caught up. So Israel flees to the wilderness. And we see that explicitly happening in history between 66 and 70. 3.5 years. And then it's destroyed.
Well, I would argue it's probably immediately. Like, they wasn't like ones and twos. I think it was all of them, because you look at the Romans coming in from the north, the first place they hit is Galilee. Jesus' home turf. And we don't read about, mass Christian executions there.
Right.
They're gone. They're all gone. Israel-wide, not just Jerusalem alone. Yeah. And then, of course, the destruction, he just goes south through the country. And it more or less stops at Jerusalem. The destruction there is so bad. I mean, there's still some stuff going on. But
Jerusalem was the main target.
Yeah, for conquest, but not for destruction. But then, you see that, we've gone this far. Right, because the intention was never to destroy the city, but once they had done the temple, once they had put the holes in the wall and mined it, they're like, you know what, this will become an example to the world. Yeah, and then you have Jesus' prophecy fulfilled: no stone left standing.
Yes. So, fleeing into the wilderness for 2.5 years. Sorry, 3.5 years.
3.5 years.
Yeah. Math is hard for me. 1,260
I know.
3.5 years. Again, the same time frame that we see from 66 to 70. Verse 7. And there was a war in heaven. Michael and his angels warring with the dragon. Okay, so hold on. This is where what John is doing is now going back up and retelling the story of how the enemy was defeated. So right here in verse 4, and his tail swept away a third of the stars in heaven and threw them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman. So he's on earth. So now what we see is verse 7, and there was a war in heaven. Michael and his angels warring against the dragon. So now the scene is rewound and is restating how did the enemy come to earth. Okay? Does that make sense?
Okay, explain this like it's your opinion.
Okay. We have, let me go to a new page so I don't waste
because
paper.
I just heard a really good
Okay.
idea on this. I'm not going to say it's correct, but I liked it.
Sure. We have verse 4, and it says, the dragon, so we have heaven is a cloud, because it's always a cloud.
Sure.
And we have the earth. Verse 4, the dragon sweeps a third of heaven down to the earth, right? And then we have verse 6. Are you in the chapter?
I am. Yeah,
okay.
You read it, verse 6. That's the woman fled in the wilderness.
Okay, then...
It's verse 7, and there was a war in heaven. Michael...
Okay, so pause. Wait, he was already on earth. So how in verse... Did you say 7?
Mm-hmm.
How in verse 7 are we back in heaven? The only way to describe that is this type of an idea, where verse... let me go like this. Okay, tell me if this makes sense. Starts the story, and then it goes back and rewinds the story.
So you think it's a prequel?
Yeah. Well, not even a prequel. A midquel. A midquel? So that's verse 7.
Okay.
And there was a war in heaven, Michael, and they were not strong enough, and there was no longer a place found for them in heaven, and the great dragon was thrown down, the serpent of old, who is called the devil, Satan, or the deceiver, who deceives the whole world. He was thrown down to earth. This is why I would say it's a midquel, because he's already been thrown down to heaven, or thrown down to earth. And so verse 7 through 10 is retelling that story, like zooming into that part of the story when he's thrown down. Okay, what is your...
Okay, so this story, growing up view, is that this is the beginning of time, war, okay? This is how Satan gets in the garden in the first place.
Okay.
Because there's already been a war in heaven. And it's that view in Luke...
I'm going there right now, I think.
Right. I saw Jesus fall from, or I saw Satan fall from heaven.
Yeah.
I always heard that growing up as, well, Jesus saw it because he was there. This is a reflection of his, right? And of course you have the view that's no, once the gospel message went out with the 70, that is what destroyed Satan's power, and he fell from heaven, is driven out. But the
Luke 10:18 is what that is referring to.
So the take that I heard today, which once again, I feel like I'm becoming a Bruce Gore fanatic, but it was so good. He makes the. I don't want to misquote him here, but I think the claim he was making is that Michael, might be an office, rather than a name.
Okay.
And he essentially makes the claim that Michael is one of the personifications of Christ as the leader of the armies of heaven.
I have two disagreements, and I think for two different reasons, two different disagreements for two different things.
Not saying it's my opinion.
Yep.
This was my understanding of his opinion. Could have misheard. I'm driving down the road. There's road noise. But he essentially makes the claim that Michael and his angels is a representation of Christ's and believers.
Okay, so here's my disagreement. And I want to say, a lot of my system of belief has been informed by Bruce. Phenomenal. So I don't want to discredit any research or anything that he's done. But again, to me, I just go back to Scripture, and Michael and Gabriel and these angel names are used as individual angels, and then Jewish tradition alone with Jewish writings explicitly state there's 7 archangels, which again we see inferred in the beginning of chapter Revelation 1, and then other places throughout Scripture as the seven spirits.
Right,
before.
and Michael's used 3 times that I'm aware of. He's in the book of Jude, wrestling with Satan over the body of Moses.
So is that Jesus wrestling over the body? Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
No. I mean, I completely understand your disagreements, but you also look at the idea that it's the angel of the Lord when he comes down, right? So Michael is the angel here who's leading the army against Satan. Okay. But when you meet the commander of the Lord's armies at the beginning of the book of Joshua, it's not named Michael. He's the angel of the Lord, which we've established is a title for Jesus.
Correct.
But he explicitly states, I am the leader of the heavenly army.
Yeah.
Right. Has this office now been abdicated and given to Michael?
But it could be...
it's just,
really
it's really an interesting idea.
Back to... And this is where... I feel like, from my understanding of what you're saying, Bruce is kind of contradicting himself in that there is an unseen realm, a council of... what is that phrase?
Elders, a divine council.
Divine council, right? Yes, there's that they've been given varying degrees of authority.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, we take one of the divine council members and then immediately apply a messianic figure to it?
And I'm not like I said, possibly misunderstood him. But
fair enough, yeah.
And then the final argument he has is, Michael is declared to be the prince of this world. Yeah. In, I think it's Job.
Michael.
We talked about this here recently.
I'm going to do research real quick.
Yeah. That was the third piece of evidence he presented. Because, there's, like I said, he's only mentioned in 3 books.
You said in Job?
By name. I think it's Job. Just type in prince of this world. Or your prince. It might be that. It might... Deuteronomy?
Let me go all of passages.
Yeah.
Prince world is Ephesians 2:2.
Hold on, let me just Google it real quick.
Okay. Well, he's looking at that, and I know he's gonna. I was gonna say agree with me on this part. The reason dispensationally why I disagree. This is before the foundation of the world, like what you're saying before physical creation.
Right.
The reason I disagree with this is because we find the deceiver in Job taking place after creation. He's before the throne of God, able to intercede on the behalf of humans. And so I wholeheartedly disagree with that viewpoint, that this is a picture prior to creation, because that doesn't make sense. The only way this passage makes sense is that once the Messiah has come and has begun the redemption process in the world, no longer does the accuser have the ability to accuse, because now the Messiah has come. I've taken on the sin of the world. You no longer have a voice in people's lives. You no longer have the voice to say, look at this person. Look at this person. And Jesus goes, yep, look at me. Look at me. I took it.
I totally agree with you.
No, that one I figured you would agree with, and you were looking for it.
The third Michael reference, Daniel 10:13. So Daniel, right? Very authoritative. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia was standing in my way for 21 days.
Yeah.
Then behold, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, for I had been left there with the kings of Persia.
Okay. One of.
I know.
So are there multiple messiahs?
Well,
I'm just saying, this is why
this is why people don't give you ideas.
What do you mean?
Because you just like, ugh.
But, well, no, we got to look at Scripture to define Scripture, and I think these are the areas often when I disagree with Bruce or any of the other, dude, if you don't like my mics, man. No, this is one of those areas that if I'm going to disagree with someone, it's going to be over, okay, let's look at what Scripture says. Any other preterist view, which is why I'm not a full preterist, even Bruce Gore, and I think here's the principle that I want to state. Read the Bible. Read the Bible. Read Scriptures. Don't take Nathan Steele's word for it. Don't take Phil's. Don't take Bruce's. Don't take an angel. Paul says it this way: if an angel comes down from heaven preaching a different gospel, read. Just read. Read the scriptures, read the cross references. And again, that's where argue with me. Like, tap on your keyboard and send us questions and argue with it. And I would just always go back to scripture. What does scripture say? Pretty sure I got a beard hair in my mouth.
Beard there.
Good does that make sense?
No, I mean, I agree with you.
Yeah.
It was just an interesting idea presented, and it may be more. It may have been more like another symbolism of the Christ.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that he is the Christ, but certainly that's the way I understood it. Is he saying Michael may be an office that Christ fulfills?
So we have multiple places that we read about the enemy being kicked out of heaven. One of those places is that Luke passage. I just have in my notes another. It's in John. Let's see here, John 12. What does it say? John 12:31. Jesus answered and said, "This voice has not come from my sake, but your sake. Now judgment is upon the world. Now the ruler of this world will be cast out." And I would argue that the ruler of this world is cast out of heaven. We see throughout the New Testament, he still has a voice. He still has a voice on earth, but he doesn't have the power anymore, right? He doesn't have the power to go and advocate to God the Father, or accuse is maybe a better one, not advocate. Accuse to God the Father.
I think that's the better word.
That literally is the word. No, that's my bad. So now the judgment is upon this world. Now the ruler of this world will be cast out. Again, I think it's cast out of heaven, not cast out of the earth. Because the New Testament's filled with, hey, there's spiritual warfare. Hey, pray. The enemy's prowling around like a roaring lion. So there's all this talk. The enemy still is present, but he no longer has the authority, maybe is the best word, because he's no longer able to accuse to God himself.
Right.
Yeah? Okay.
No, totally.
Jesus finally disarmed the enemy. This is prophesied in Isaiah 27:1 and fulfilled Colossians 2:15. And I want to read that one because any Christians who are terrified of the enemy, oh no, is he going to win? Colossians 2:15, when he had disarmed, this is talking about Jesus, when Jesus had disarmed the rulers and authorities, he made a public display of them, having triumphed over them through him. Let me back up. Verse 14, having canceled out the certificate of debt consisting of decrees against us. So decrees against us, right? The accuser, which was hostile to us. And he has taken it out of the way, having nailed it to the cross. So that is the moment.
What do you think that means?
What?
Nailed it to the cross.
I think this is the duality of the enemy and the law. So the enemy points to the law and goes, I'm accusing you based on the law.
Right.
And what Jesus did is took the law, nailed it to the cross, and now the enemy's like, I have nothing to point to. I can't accuse you anymore because Jesus is now the face of it, not the law. Which again, Galatians, read through all of these passages in the New Testament where the law is fulfilled, and that is the thing that the enemy points to accuse. You did not hold up your end of the law. Which is why Galatians says the promise is better than the law, because the promise has nothing to do with you. The law had everything to do with you.
Well, and I think that's a drum you just can't stop beating with, the end of the law. It's the end of the law.
It's the end of the law.
Because it's something that we see addressed in all of Paul's writing, going back and forth with, ignore the Judaizers, you don't need circumcision, don't go back to the temple. All these things he's saying that you do not need anymore. And every one of them is, you could just replace it with the law and be just fine because it still has merit and meat.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. This is what I mean, and this is the drum I can't stop beating, is Revelation is not unique. Revelation is the entire New Testament in Revelation. Like there's no new material John is working with. It's all regurgitated prophetic and meaning the Hebrew scriptures, and it's all New Testament imagery.
Do you think at some point he was like, see if Peter can top this one?
Him and Peter were always
frenemies.
Frenemies, yeah. Exactly. They had, you know what? They had matching bracelets though.
The ones you made in Sunday school, it's like, and he's in heaven. That's the white bead.
So I think that's so anyways, that's the drum I'm going to beat, right?
All right.
Constantly. All right, let's go back to Revelation of one passage or another, wherever we're at. Where are we at?
We're in like 10?
7. There's a war. Michael and his angels waging war with the dragon. The dragon and his angels waged war, and they were not strong enough, and there was no longer a place found for them in heaven. And the great dragon was thrown down, and the serpent of old, right? The devil, Satan, the one who deceives the world, he was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. Right? A third. Then I heard a voice in heaven saying, now the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ have come. For the accuser of our brethren has been thrown down, he who accuses them before God day and night. So he's no longer able to do that, right? Verse 11, and they overcame him. Go ahead. Go ahead.
It seems to contradict your notes.
Where?
What you're saying right there.
Which part?
The very bottom of what my fingers are pointing to.
Oh, okay.
The third of the stars. You have here in the notes. You're like, this is not spiritual beings.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So,
okay.
For those following the notes, just flesh that out. Just explain.
Yeah. So, the third of the stars. Okay, this was a Bruce Goreism. I think that's where I got it from. Or it's Deja Vengeance by...
Well, the stars falling, Bruce Gore points it out, but you pointed it out to me in I keep saying apocryphal. That's not the right word.
Apocryphal.
Prophetic writing.
Yeah, it's apocryphal. It's a type of Jewish writing.
Right, it's kind of like...
a subset of prophecy.
Earthquakes, right?
Yeah.
It's almost never really an earthquake. It's almost always upheaval.
Yeah.
Something is happening within the land that's causing mass chaos and problems. When the star's falling, it's usually some kind of political authority being disrupted, removed, destroyed.
Okay, so with... thank you. The third of the stars fell with him. So some people take it as this is a third of the angels have fallen.
Absolutely how I grew up, right?
Right. No, what this is a third of his, or like a third of his power. Like it's, because he's not destroyed yet. He's not thrown in the lake of fire. He's not thrown into eternal death. That we don't see that until later. So part of his power has been taken. The ability for him to go before the Father has been taken. Now, he still is roaming around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he... So he's not... All the stars didn't fall. All of his power wasn't taken away. And so to your point of, well, he was fully disarmed at the cross, what that means is the only power that he has now is roaring lion power. He doesn't have claws or fangs is how I view it.
He's a voice.
He's a voice. And it's that voice in your head that says, don't forgive. I have the right. I should be able to, you know what? I deserve. It's that gnawing voice when you're in relationship with others. That's the enemy. But he no longer has the power unless the only way the enemy gains power is when I go, I agree. I agree with you.
Not that you ever do, Nathan.
I never do.
Yeah.
No, but do you see what I'm saying, though? Is right. When does our life self-destruct? When I agree with that voice and go, you're right, I do deserve.
Yeah, it's that, I was just talking about this with Chelsea the other day. We were like, what's the word? Intermission.
Yeah.
We've been having one of those months, right, where we're just like, at each other's throats.
Little ring girl came through.
Yeah, she's like, okay, halftime. But we had a good couple of days where we were separated. I was at work and it gave us both a moment to breathe, right?
A bit of a reprieve. Yeah.
But I was telling her, I was like, I've got that anxiety of too much time on my hands. Where I'm at work, but the type of work I do is very much situation driven. I can't just go out there and generate product, so to speak. Which lends to a lot of inner thought time.
Yeah, right.
And so I have a tendency to start going down the rabbit trail of, I need to be doing this, I need to be doing that. And then it turns into, well, this is why you can't do that. And then it's, well, this is the person that's the reason you can't do that. And maybe you're the person. And if you were a better person, if you had made this decision, if you had made that choice, if you had taken this opportunity, you know what? You're really just kind of a piece of And that's where we end up. When we run down that trail, right?
Yo,
you can bleep that.
I gotta
leave it because that was amazing.
I gotta do something to show that I need to edit somewhere in this place. There, my calendar. When I see my calendar editing,
all right,
bleep that.
But yeah, that's that voice you're talking about, right?
Yes.
And it sounds like you. It feels like you.
Here's the thing. It feels so justified too.
And it's genuine. Oh, because I care about you,
right.
You should feel this way.
Right. And you know what? God said that, love others as I love myself, and I gotta love myself in this moment.
Right.
Like, we have verses that we can back up what we're feeling.
Well, you've heard me justify with verses before.
Do you know what I mean? What I'm saying is what you're saying is such a real, visceral feeling. This is not some hypothetical, I'm just being tempted by the enemy. It's, this feels so right now.
Yeah, and sometimes it's...
And I have
it's
verses.
Just...
Yeah.
Right? And this is a righteous anger. I remember my dad telling me that once, you should only be angry with righteous anger. I have found the opportunity for righteous anger so much in my life. Because I look for it.
I have a whole teaching on what righteous anger is. So
next time. Anyway, but yeah, so that's the power that remains, right? That influence, that willing influence.
So, and that's what I mean by a third of the stars. Yes, part of his power is removed, but he's still around. We do not see him gone until the end of Revelation, which we'll talk about and discuss.
Is there? I'm sorry, just
yeah. No, you're good.
As I'm thinking about this, right? Something we've always attributed. When we think of demons, we always think of the demoniac with the guy breaking chains and eating dogs, and Scott's favorite story,
Springfield. Am I wrong?
Not involved. Never done the research. But what is the word used here? And his angels, his messengers were thrown down with him.
Yeah.
We have this idea that there's just one guy out there for us, but there's these liars. Mm-hmm. I mean, are you following my train of thought?
Yeah.
I mean, you always have this idea of some kind of demonic force that's just, comic book style, eating people and devouring kids, but it's really messengers.
Right there. His messengers. Right, here's the way I view it, maybe to your point. I promise I'm not important enough for Satan to come after me.
Right.
I'm confident one of his messengers are, though.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, Satan's kind of reserved for the Messiah. People that are doing some big things in the world. You're one-offs. You're who's the great evangelist? Billy Graham.
Oh, Billy Graham, yeah.
Right? Pretty sure Billy Graham was that was his assignment. The enemy's going directly for Bill.
Right.
I get one of the likely...
You get Keith.
I get Keith the demon. That's hilarious. That's awesome. You know what? Not even Keith. Keith sounds too sexy. You know what? I get Bert.
Oh.
Bert the demon's coming after Nate, and he's slightly retarded, right? Like, that... Retarded's fine because it's a real term. Anyways, so that's what I'm saying, though, is he has a ton of messengers, but it's the enemy's message to steal, kill, and destroy.
Right.
That's his message. Hey, demon, angel, follower of mine, messenger, do whatever you can to steal, kill, and destroy from Nate. And if that means promoting his own care for his heart and mind, and make sure he builds up walls so that people can't offend him, do that. He'll love that. Because now he's isolated and ready for attack.
Or just encourage him to break down whenever he's faced with hardship.
Yeah. Yeah. Make sure you throw...
You know what? Keep that one buddy around that always convinces him to do stupid things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So... Anyway, so that's what that third of angels or third of stars is to your point. It's that partial dismantling of his kingdom. He's no longer has the power. The authority maybe is the better word. He no longer has the authority to accuse us, but he's still able to talk. Even if it doesn't carry any weight behind it.
I bet it's a catchy tune too.
Oh, it's so catchy, like Taylor Swift. Okay.
I was thinking of that. What's that lawyer who has the opera singer?
Oh,
the annuity song.
Yeah.
I can't think of the words, and if I did, I would never stop. So
how do we oppose the enemy like 1 Peter 5 tells us to? It says they did not and they overcame him. So here's how we overcome his whispers: because of the blood of the Lamb, so who Jesus is and what he accomplished on the cross, and because of the word of their story, what Jesus has set them free from. And they did not love their life even when faced with death. Now, here's the thing. This is talking about martyrs, those who physically die. But I would argue, because in America, we're great. Church is comfortable. What does death look like here? It would be maybe reputation, maybe accusation. We just had this a few months ago where Lacey and I were accused that our ministry is not doing anything because our marriage isn't healthy and we don't have the power and authority of the Holy Spirit. And it was a whole thing, man. Multiple things. The ministry's been accused because we're demonic.
So these people weren't in the ministry, I'm taking it?
No.
I mean...
We were ministering to them. There's a couple Lacey and I had been ministering to for a while.
I would say, because I mean, I've been with your ministry for like 2.5 years as a follower, a junior partner, whatever you want to call it. And
has it only been 2.5 years?
Since you asked us to come on board, it's been about 2.5 years.
Oh, okay.
Maybe
I thought it was longer than that.
No, it's only we're coming up on 4. I keep rounding up to 4.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay, so you're right.
So
That's
in
why.
relationship, 4 years.
Yeah, there we go.
Probably closer to 2 years since y'all started. You first said, "Hey, why don't y'all come help with Cultivate?"
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I don't want to make it sound like y'all are casting demons out every Sunday night, but the amount of people that can look at your ministry and say, "Hey, this is what started."
Yeah.
The healthiness of my marriage. This is what started the relationship with my child. This is there's a lot of people. But
Phil, this is the lie of the enemy.
Right.
I've told my story to you, right? Like feeling inadequate, feeling unimportant. What better lie is there than to go, Nate, your ministry is worthless. What a great lie against me.
Right.
Right? And this is where, okay, what does Nathan steal in the face of those temptations? What does he have to do? Jesus, you said I was important. You forgave me of my sins. You're the one that has led me and my wife into healthy relationship with others, reminding us we've seen these people come to Jesus. We've seen these people walk in wholeness. We're walking with these people through mess, but you are the one that's doing it. Like it's going back. How did I overcome him in that space? Who Jesus was, what he accomplished, and then the word of his story. God, here's what you've done in my life. You did this, and not loving myself, my life, even unto death. Which means, you know what? Let's say they're right. Let's say we're terrible. Jesus, I give you my life again. Jesus, I'm going to lay down my life. And there's been multiple times throughout our ministry where Jesus has explicitly asked us, will you lay Cultivate relationship down? And time again, these are not like wake up the next morning like, oh, of course. These are hard seasons in our life where we're like, so give up the thing that we've built, or give up the thing that I do derive some semblance of worth from. And again, it's laying that down. Okay,
20 years of your life, right? Essentially.
Well, freedom ministry or ministry at 20 plus years.
But since you
Cultivate 7. 8
years.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we did 4 years at a Bible school where we developed a lot of the foundation of what Cultivate was built on. And then prior to that, several years of a wholeness ministry that we were working with.
Gotcha.
So, but again, how do we overcome? And this is what our ministry is about, overcoming the enemy.
Right.
Because he still whispers, and our ministry is, hey, he has no more authority over you. Read John 16. John 16 is Jesus giving us the Holy Spirit to remind us the enemy has already been judged. He's done. Right? This is a present reality. This is not 2000, 7000 AD, or it'd be 4000 AD. Right? 7,000 years total?
Oh, no, we're in, it'd be like 3,500.
Yeah. So this is not a future, John 16 is not a future hope. It is a present reality for current believers.
Right. Which is why it's not included in Revelation. I'm going to back up real quick just for a second. Just the verse. He was thrown down, and I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, "Now." Yeah. I don't think we read this. The salvation and the power.
That's what I was. Yeah, that's what I was getting to. Yeah.
Oh, because we skipped it down to 11 when we talked about they overcame. Now the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of His Christ have come. For the accuser of our brethren has been thrown down, who accuses them before God day and night, and they overcome him with the because of the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. So that's what we just kind of beat to death.
Yeah.
I feel like we didn't read that first part. Maybe we did.
I did. I think I glossed over it because I was wanting to get to 11. But no.
But it's pretty explicit, really.
Thank you.
Right? So for the future, it's like, no, he's died, right? He's caught up.
Yeah. And
now salvation and the kingdom has come right there.
This verse, what would that be? 10.b, whatever?
Yeah.
This is my frustration with futurists or what are they called? Dispensationalists. Is they put they take a current reality and move it off into the future.
Well, and you can kind of see the argument from the surface with words like soon, right? With that tachyi, even though it always means immediately, right? But it does say soon. It's an ambiguous word. It's not like next week, 40 years, right? But then you have the words like now.
Exactly.
Right. So this is not even intimated that this is future. This means right now.
This means as soon as...
Of course, what the dispensationalist says, in the future, it will be the now.
Verse 13. Oh, hold on. Verse 12. For this reason, rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has come down to you, having great wrath, knowing he only has a short time. Right? He's pissed. Lack of a better word. He's been defeated. He already knows where he's going. And here's the thing. The devil, his messengers, are not enemies of God. Right? God doesn't have an enemy. He wins. Like, hands down, he's our enemy.
It's really that old idea that you see in Westerns and some old war movies. It's, I'm going to take as many with me as I can.
Exactly. That's exactly. You know what I'm going to do? Is I'm going to disappoint the Father by taking as many of his creation with me. Yep. That's all it's about now. Mm-hmm. That's it. Period.
It's a numbers game.
And when the dragon saw that he had been thrown down to earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. But the two wings of the great eagle, not America, were given to the woman so that they...
So that's Rome, right?
It is, here's the thing. God, throughout Isaiah, throughout prophetic literature, references wings of an eagle as a way of quickening, hastening the freedom of his people.
I looked at this word because eagle and vulture are sometimes used to mean the same thing.
Synonymous, yep.
Not here.
Okay.
And not in a few other places.
Hold on. Aotus?
Yeah, it just means big bird.
Okay. So it doesn't mean America?
Well...
oh my word!
We have a big bird over on Sesame Street.
Parenthetical, real quick.
Yeah, y'all don't watch this part.
I've heard people go, Jerusalem. You know what makes up the middle of it? USA. And I'm like, okay. And they're like,
I'm sorry.
We're the protectors.
I've never heard that one before.
Are you serious? Oh, I was like, oh my goodness.
Actually, I wonder, you could make the argument, obviously, right? Rome, jumping ahead a little bit, heals the head of one of the beasts, right?
Yeah. Don't get there. We'll get there. Dude, we have so much to get through.
You know what? Just take this slow because this is the meat. This is the meat of this one. This is the one chapter that everyone has a field day with.
Oh, really? I like 17.
Well, 17 too, but I mean, but this one has all the imagery and the beasts.
Yeah.
And,
you're saying like landing, like chill here for a little bit.
I'm just saying, don't rush this because this is great. It's fun too. All right, we can go faster. I won't. Okay, but I mean, just if we take the idea that there's a false Israel that is represented by a false prophet.
Yeah.
And there's an eagle there's a beast that props up that false prophet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could see an argument there for maybe America propping up a false Israel, but it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with this.
So why bring it up? Oh my word.
Because it's fun.
Verse 14. But the two wings of a great eagle, a giant bird, were given to the woman so that she could fly into the wilderness to her place where she is nourished for a time, times and half a time.
That'd be 3.5 years.
And from the presence of the serpent. Okay, remember, what John did, I'm going to bring up my picture. What John did is retell the story. He's doing this throughout the entire book of Revelation, telling a story, retelling the story in new light, retelling the story with new details, retelling the story. He's just constantly doing this.
Right, because I mean, what he just did here in 15 verses, and I argue he probably could have done it this fast in all the chapters, is he just let you know who the real enemy is.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. You know, this nation that's coming against you, these beasts and these locusts and all these machines of war, it's really just Satan trying to persecute the Christ.
Yep.
Trying to persecute his people, the righteous of Israel.
Yeah. Yep. The faithful Israel. Verse 15. And the serpent poured water like a river out of his mouth after the woman so that he might cause her to be swept away with the flood. But the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and drank up the river which the dragon poured out of his mouth. And I would say that flood, right, throughout apocalyptic language, prophetic language, flood is the destruction of a nation, right, the destruction of a people. Mm-hmm. But the earth opened its mouth and saved the woman. Verse 17, so the dragon was enraged with the woman and went off to make war against the rest of her children who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus. Let me rephrase this how Nathan Steele interprets this, okay?
Oh, please do.
So the dragon was enraged with faithful Israel, faithful Israel, and went off to make war with the rest of her children, all of those who are followers of faithful Israel, who trust the Messiah, who keep the commandment of God to love others and hold to the testimony of Jesus. So the enemy goes, fine, I will devour everyone, as many people as I can, who are after the name of Jesus. And so, I mean, that's kind of been the story for the last 2,000 years, is him continually going after.
So you would see this as the ongoing persecution of the church.
Yes. Yep.
You know, right from the beginning with, we have the church, after the destruction of Israel, goes to this not immaculate, that's not the right word, kind of this fantastic time of peace until you come back to a return to persecution in the 90s under Domitian. It's very brief, it's very intense.
But it's very localized, too.
It's localized to Rome for the most part. And then you see it again with Tiberius. You see it again with Trajan, these flash fires of persecution. And then, for those that don't realize that persecution is going on right now, arguably, while Nathan and I have been talking, someone has just died for the name of Christ, either in China, in Africa, the Middle East.
And I recommend any literature by Voice of the Martyrs. They do a phenomenal job of really... documenting all the atrocities that go on in the name of wiping out, making war with the rest of her children. They do a phenomenal job of that. I will say, so dealing with this, the earth opening up and saving it, Epiphanius, in his Panarion 7, chapter 7, verse 7, he writes this: all the disciples had settled in Pella after their move from Jerusalem, Christ having told them to abandon Jerusalem and withdraw from it because of the siege it was about to undergo. And they settled in Perea for this reason and, as I said, lived their lives there. History has I think Josephus is another one, Eusebius, who likely quotes Josephus, but they all write that faithful Israel was saved. Why? Because they believed their Messiah. When he said, abandon Jerusalem. Right? And this is why Hebrews is written, and I would argue this is why Revelation is written, as a testimony, as a witness, and as even a foreshadowing of, listen, Jerusalem's going down, don't go down with it. Will you trust Jesus in what he said?
Right.
And then we see that actually played out in Epiphanius. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. This is one of the many resources we make available for free at our website, cultivaterelationships.com. Our resources have helped people grow in their relationship with God and others. We've seen people set free from uncontrollable anger and paralyzing fear. We've witnessed estranged family members be reunited after working through our Freedom Booklet. We've helped people build healthy relationship and coping habits through our coaching videos. And all of these resources are made available for free because of the generous support of people like you. If you would like to become a partner, please visit cultivaterelationships.com/support. Now, I hope you enjoy the rest of this episode.
Chapter 13, verse 1.
And the dragon stood on the sand of the seashore.
Do you think that's in contrast? I'm just spitballing here. I know we're going slow. But the dragon stands on the sand of the seashore. The angel stands on both the sea and the land. Do you think there's some contrast there?
Oh, I think there... what is it? Compare and contrast? Yeah, I think it's... John is constantly doing that, right? Where he holds up one picture and then holds up another one. And it's the same idea of... was it Lucifer is called the morning star?
Yeah.
But then there's a messianic prophecy about a morning star.
The first star of the morning.
Yeah. And then you have Jesus, who is the lion from the tribe of Judah. But then you have 1 Peter 5 where it says, and the enemy is like a prowling lion. Like there's always what the enemy loves to do is put himself up against the Messiah.
Well, and it's a theme that goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden.
Totally.
Where he is, don't trust him, trust me.
Right. So we have, excuse me, I'm going to draw this as water, okay? Let me see here. This is water, beautiful water.
Okay.
Best water ever. Everyone tells me it's the best water.
So that would be from the Dallas Bottling Company?
I don't know what that is.
That's where the Aquafina and all the name brand waters like that Coca-Cola owns in Texas come from the Dallas bottling plant.
Okay, so we have land on this side, and this is a very important distinction, and water on this side, or you know what? I got to use its word, sea, right? The sea. There we go. So in the enemy, if we just want to say he's right here in the on that beach front. And he sees a red beast. Where are we at?
We're in chapter 13.
Chapter 13, verse 1. Then I saw a beast coming out of the sea. Okay. Prophetic language. Sea is often
Gentiles.
And land is often Israel. In the notes that you should have in front of you, there are multiple places, we already talked about it. That's right. Chapter 10, 2 and 3, we already discussed Gentiles, so I'm not going to go into that again. But, again, prophetic. John is not making up terms, so when he says see, every Jewish person is like, oh, okay, Gentile. Think Gentile. Then I saw a beast coming out of the Gentiles, having 10 horns, 7 heads, and on his horns were 10 diadems, and his heads were blasphemous names. And the beast, which I saw, was like a leopard. So now what, excuse me, now what he's going to get into is Daniel's prophecy. This beast is this fulfillment, or having been fulfilled. These are lines or kingdoms. Leopard, feet was like that of a bear, its mouth of that of a lion, and the dragon gave him his power and his throne and the great authority. So who empowered this beast?
China.
Oh, what? How?
China empowers Russia. The leopard is representative of the old Slavic states.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the lion, of course, is Western Europe, specifically England.
Yeah.
So that's what's going on here, and you see that fulfilled right now.
So
with this new alliance between Putin and President Xi in China. You know, they're now propagating a war. They're planning to invade Taiwan. This is all falling. It's happening right in front of you, Nathan.
For those of you listening on audio,
waiting to do that.
For those of you listening
an hour and a half
on audio, I'm very perturbed. Okay, you know what? I'll go with that. Okay, where in Scripture is that?
You just read it.
Nope. Where in Scripture is that
No,
defined?
you just read that.
No. Every other piece of literature.
Well, see, in Daniel, it talks about these same beasts, right?
Yeah, and who are they?
Okay, we can't look at Scripture, Nathan. We have to look at what symbolizes these nations. The dragon has always been China. The bear has always been Russia, except for when it wasn't.
No. In Daniel, in his prophecy,
Daniel, yeah.
What did those kingdoms represent?
Oh, I'm pretty sure they represented China and Russia, or was it Persia and
Greece.
Babylon, Greece?
Right?
Right. No, exactly to your point, right?
But
this is the argument, right? This is the futurist argument in a nutshell, is that we can't look at Daniel because it's historical. What good can it actually do us? We have to look at the now.
And so we just, I want to swear so bad. You just make up stuff and throw it at the wall and see what sticks. Like
He's actually not talking about me there. I just want to
No, right.
clear.
Yeah. This is why you have to interpret Scripture with Scripture. And you can't just make stuff up. Where is this found? The only other place that we see these three animals talked about is Daniel. Okay, so now we have to go back to Daniel and look at what exactly he was referencing, which was, and I forget the order, forgive me, Greece, what was it? It was
No, it's Babylon,
Persia, Greece, and then Rome.
Yeah.
With iron, right? That's the statue version. There's two versions described in Daniel. One is a statue, and one is this beast figure.
And man, we didn't even get to talk about the statue. There's definitely some hints of the statue in the trumpets, especially with that the stone being hurled and the whatever. Sorry, we're gonna go forward.
No, I don't disagree.
It deals with Daniel's statue. Now we're going to deal with Daniel's beast, which are explicitly, they tell us who it is.
Yeah.
Right? And the order that they're going to come in, and historically, that is the order it happened in.
Exactly. So we have this beast. I'm just drawing out this. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7-headed beast. I have a really cool drawing right here, but I don't know how to put that onto there. Maybe I do. Hold on.
It's all Apple, right? Shouldn't it just magically work?
You know what? It should, except for I don't know how to do that.
Well, but I mean, the beast is kind of a copy of the dragon, except it has legs. That's really the only difference.
It has legs. And it's empowered by, for sure, it's empowered by, right?
Well, but I mean, the 7 heads, and on his horns were 10 horns, 7 heads, and 10 diadems were on his heads, right? And each crown, of course, has this blasphemous name on it. So it's like a little beast, but it has, it has feet like a leopard.
Hold on, I have...
I'm sorry, it has a body of a leopard, feet like a bear, and his mouth was like a roaring lion.
Yep, so I do have a photo of a graphic, a picture I drew.
Oh, good.
There we go. Okay.
Is it as high quality as these?
It is. It's actually more. You know what? I'm going to say it's actually more. And I was hoping I would...
I'm so excited.
I was hoping I'd be able to do this because this is way better of a picture.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay, so...
All right.
There we go.
I remember when you drew this the first time.
Yeah, so... Okay, so we have... There's the better version of the dragon. And then over here we have... the 7-headed beast, and it has bear features, lion features, and 4 heads, a leopard feature, right? Mm-hmm. So then, okay, so...
Well, the body of a leopard, the feet of a bear, the mouth
here.
of a lion.
And the beast, which I saw, was like a leopard, and his feet were like those of a bear, and his mouth was like that of a lion. And the dragon gave him power and his throne and great authority. I saw one of the heads as though it had been slain, which we'll get to, and his fatal wound was healed, and the whole earth was amazed, followed after the beast. They worshiped the dragon because he gave authority to the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast? And who is able to wage war with him?" So one of the features of this beast is a war machine. Who can overcome it? What does that remind you of? And so help me, if you say China or Russia or whatever, anything other than Rome.
All right. Could it be Rome, Nathan? Byzantium, perhaps.
There was given to him a mouth speaking arrogant words and blasphemies, and authorities to act for 42 months, which was given to him. How many?
42.
Which is?
The answer to life, the universe, and everything.
3.5 years. And he opened his mouth.
Oh my gosh.
What?
Okay, you've never read, I don't even know why I started a sentence with that. You saw the movie, spaceships, alien, into the world.
Independence Day?
No.
Oh.
The one where 42 is the plot point.
I don't remember.
I'm so embarrassed right now. Not have spacesuit will travel. We'll come back to this.
Verse 6, and he opened his mouth and had blasphemies against God, and blasphemed his name and his tabernacle, and that is, those who dwell in heaven.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
I have not seen that.
Okay. Literally, the Earth is a machine created by aliens, and it's trying to answer the question, what is the answer to life, the universe, and everything? The answer is 42.
Oh, that's funny.
All right, but I don't know. All of a sudden, I'm getting some Revelation vibes from like somebody just made a really intelligent joke.
That's funny. Verse 7, it was given to him to make war against the saints and overcome them, and the authority over every tribe and people and tongue and nation was given to him. All who dwell on the earth will worship him, everyone whose name is not written in the foundation of the world, in the book of life, and the Lamb that was slain. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. So here's verse 9. John is writing, I argue, in 65, and even more specific, probably around 67 to 68 AD. You know what? Even if you're thinking he's written in 95, disagree, hardcore. Either way,
I think we know that.
Those who have an ear, let him hear. That what he's saying is, you know exactly what I am talking about. Mm-hmm. This is not a made-up thing. This is not something we can just arbitrarily give definition to. Well, you know exactly what I'm saying.
And one argument that I don't think has really been explored by a lot of people is you couldn't just write stuff about the emperor.
Right?
There was laws against that. So, the kind of thing that would get you killed. So an argument for this style of writing is what's a coded message I can send that they will completely understand.
Yep.
And
here's what John says. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. If anyone is destined for captivity he goes. If anyone kills with the sword he must be killed. Here is the perseverance and the faith of the saints. He goes like this. He goes, listen, you may be taken captive. It's God's will. I forget who says it. The blood of the martyrs is the seed of the saints, I think it's called. It was one of the martyrs said that. He said, his co-prisoner was like, how come all this is happening? He says, listen, blood of the martyrs is the seed of the saints. This is the seed of the kingdom. And he says this, if you kill by the sword you will be killed. Meaning, if you take up arms against this, you're going to die. And it's not going to be a martyr. It'll be you being an idiot. Then here's the perseverance and the faith of the saints. Basically, listen, the enemy's going to come after us, right? Remember that long devastation that the dragon's going to bring out into the kingdom? A lot of people are going to die. But do you believe this is all part of God's glorious big idea plan?
What a big shift in ideology that must have been for the Jewish people that became Christians. Because how many times do you see men rising up to not let this blasphemy stand in the presence of God.
Yeah.
You know, David sending men into the well of Bethlehem to get a drink, and then he pours it out before the altar, slaying Saul's servant because he struck the anointed, even though Saul begged him to kill him instead of him being taken captive. You have this very violent for God nation, and all of a sudden it's like, we're pacifists now.
Yeah.
And pacifist is not the right word, because I think that Christianity is not, we are aggressive, but it's to death, right? It's not in defense of life. What's the right word here?
I know what you're saying, and I'm having difficulty. It's basically we are aggressively grace-filled.
It's surrendering the right
Yeah.
to defend our own life.
Yep. So, because I always am a fan of application, we see this when it comes to being martyred for my Christianity and faith in Jesus. What about laying down my life for those I'm in relationship with? Right? Like, it always comes back down to
we're good, right?
We're good. We can fight. We have rights. No, it always. That's the whole point of the gospel. Is it always comes back down to, hey, you willing to lay down your life for that person? That is legitimately the definition, like literally the definition of the gospel. Laying down your life for the benefit of someone else.
Exactly.
And more importantly, especially those who don't deserve it. Right?
Yeah, I just had a very personal thought come to my head, in total agreement with what you just said. Right. Not going to share it here.
Fair enough.
But,
yeah.
just that constant reminder of I didn't deserve it either.
Right.
And like in a conversation I had with you not that long ago, I said, it kind of feels like that person's getting away with it. And you were like, you just got the message. Right.
That's the gospel.
That's the gospel.
I got away with my sin. I did. It's not fair. And yet we want fairness only when it benefits us.
Right.
Not when it's at us.
Exactly.
Right?
So I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
As you said that, but that's really it,
But this is the so people ask, okay, if it's a historical book, how does it apply to me? We just applied it. Like, that's how it applies. Is the gospel are you willing to lay down your life and not fight for what you believe is fair?
I think that's the most erroneous thing I've ever heard, is that how does it apply if it's a historical book? Basically, I don't know. How does
the entire Bible?
How does Genesis apply?
We don't have that argument there.
Yeah. What about Luke or Acts? That is probably the most historical of all the books because it's written chronologically. And we did this perspective, but yet no one argues that there's application there. All right, now tell us why this picture is Rome.
So this is Rome. So we have 3 beasts. It has 7 heads.
10 horns.
10 horns. And I would argue we have a bear figure, a lion figure, and at least a leopard figure. The reason I threw a wolf up there, because there's a beast that's scary, that unmentionably scary, with teeth of iron. It's, I believe, in Revelation 17. In Revelation 17, he goes back to this.
Oh, okay.
So here's you're going to have to please trust me. I'm not going to go into it now. The 1-for-1, okay? This is, we're going to revisit in 17 when John breaks down what this beast actually looks like, okay? Right. So I'm going to leave this for now and not break it down. I will say one thing. The beast is more than Nero. It represents Rome as a whole, but it reaches its full expression in Nero. Let me read you this by Suetonius in 12 Caesars. It says, both Nero and the empire were sunk in degrading, degenerate, bestial activities. Nero, who murdered numerous members of his own family, including his own mother, Agrippina, and pregnant wife, whom he kicked to death, whose favorite aphrodisiac consisted of watching people suffer the most horrifying and disgusting torture, who dressed up as a wild beast in order to attack and rape male and female prisoners, who used bodies of Christians burning at the stake as the original Roman candles, who launched the first imperial persecution of Christians in order to destroy the church. This animalistic pervert was the rule of the most powerful empire in the land. So that is a historical, Suetonius in 12 Caesars, view of who Nero was. Don't be mistaken. That was a Roman writing about a Roman emperor.
And it's pretty kind to him, really.
Yeah,
You know, the other person we talked about previously was his mother. You know, so Nero was pretty good for the first like 5 years of his rule. His mother was helping him. His general, whose name I can't remember, was helping him, and Seneca, the great Stoic author, was helping him. And then he murdered all of them.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's when, you know, things go off the rails. He burns the city down. And who, remind me, Nathan, for the sake of the audience, who convinces Nero maybe the Christians should be blamed for that?
Man, so there is a theory. I'm going to go theory.
All right.
Okay. It is it's either Eusebius or an early Roman writing, and again, I apologize, I can't quote it, but basically there's this theory that there's Jewish leaders who Nero's wife had a cordial friendship with.
They're court members.
Court members who, when Rome burned, some would argue because of Nero, to get kind of a win-win situation going, Nero could build his new house, and the Jewish council at the time were like, hey, you could burn, or you could blame this on the Christians. Win-win.
Right.
We win, you win. And Nero's like, I love that idea. So that's a theory. Again, I forget where I read that. It's unfortunate because that would be great. But it is, I believe in Josephus or in Eusebius. One of those. So now let's move on to the land beast. Now again, when you see land, think Israel.
Yeah, inhabited land.
Inhabited land, think Israel, because throughout Jewish prophetic language, land is Jews or Israel, and water or sea is chaos, is Gentiles. So then I saw another beast coming out of the land, or coming out of Israel, and he had two horns like a lamb. Ooh, that's interesting. And he spoke as a dragon. He exercises all authority of the first beast in his presence. So here's the thing. This beast receives its authority from the other beast, the sea beast. Mm-hmm. So this land beast is not an authority of its own. It's under the authority of the sea beast. The sea beast, where does he get his authority from?
The dragon.
The dragon. So let's keep this progression in mind. Whose fatal wound was healed. He performs great signs, this land beast, and even makes fire come down out of heaven to earth in the presence of men. What is this reference to?
Elisha.
Okay.
Maybe possibly Moses as well with the pillar of fire.
Okay. And he deceives those who dwell on the earth because of the signs which is given to him to perform in the presence of the beast. Remember, we are talking about symbolic language. I cannot express that enough.
You're sure this isn't the AG? I'm sorry, the AC.
The AC? What?
The Antichrist?
Yeah, except nowhere in Scripture is the Antichrist mentioned except 1 John and 2 John, where it's an explicit reference to anyone who does not believe that Jesus came in flesh.
Well, I mean, I bet they would argue that point.
What?
The beasts, they would probably argue that point. The false prophet.
Sure, totally. But that is not here what the Antichrist is. The Antichrist, and it's never singular, it's plural.
I don't know. I've heard rather convincingly that he's going to come out of, Russia.
Okay.
And
yeah, just like all those. Phil.
Possibly
verse 15,
Nikolai.
And it was given to him breath of the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast would even speak and cause as many to do as do not worship the image of the beast is killed. Whoa, sorry, let me reread that again. My words got mixed up.
I was going to ask you to break that one down anyway.
Yeah. And it was given to him to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast would even speak and cause as many as do not worship the image of the beast to be killed. And he causes all, the small and the great, and the rich and the poor, and the freemen and the slaves, to be given a mark on their right hand and on their forehead. And he provides that no one will be able to buy or sell except the one who is the mark, either the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Okay, again, John is talking to his audience and says, listen, eyes on me, focus in. let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast. For the number of that man, so remember, this is all symbology, and now he's giving us what this is defined as. His number is 666, or 616, depending on the manuscript.
Right. So that is a fair point. Multiple manuscripts exist. That's something, I'm going to sum this up in about 30 seconds. For the authenticity of the Bible, when we think about the conquest of Julius Caesar, we have some great writings by Tacitus and a few others, and we know this because these writings have been accepted by the academics. The thing that needs to be understood is they were written, hundreds of years after the death of Julius Caesar, and there's only 9 copies of the conquest of Julius Caesar. There's something in the neighborhood of 6,000 documents for the entire text of the Bible. Most of them going back to the BSE era. That was the Dead Sea Scrolls. That was the great cache of Jewish writings.
Yeah.
But for the New Testament writing, several thousand first century documents still exist.
Right.
So when we talk about differences,
these aren't
copies of copies of copies.
Well, I was going to say these are not the autographs, which mean that's the original manuscript.
Right.
These are a copy of a copy, but it traces all the way back down to within about 10 to 30 years of the original.
Right, and in most cases, we can trace which church it came from. Ephesus,
Correct.
Corinth. So when you talk about differences between the manuscripts, is it 616 versus 666? Is it an error in the copy? Is it a flaw in the paper, or is it two people using two different understandings, a Greek and a Hebrew, to reckon the same information?
Right. Wait, say that last part again.
Well, I think you've established somewhere in here that either 666 works or 616 works.
Right.
They both work.
Well, and this is in the so I read out of the New American. In the footnote that the translators have put, one early manuscript reads 616.
Right.
So they reference, hey, this is both. Here's the thing. That number, no matter if it's 666 or 616, what verse am I in? 1311?
I believe so. Yeah. No, you're in...
Oh, here.
18.
Page 42, yeah. 666 or 616. Literally the number of man when added. Neron Kaiser, or 616, Neron Kaiser, or Nero Kaiser, as number appears in the earliest manuscripts, specifically Nero. Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, the number of that man. Generally Rome, right? But Hebrew viewed 666 as the downfall of a kingdom or ruler. So we see that in 1 Kings 10, 2 Chronicles 9 uses 666 to represent the downfall. But what he's referencing here is he says, listen, you know exactly who I'm talking about. And again, you find documents because this is a letter, right? And you have a Roman mail carrier. Well, I want to know what this letter reads. Oh, they're planning a coup against Caesar. Yeah, we're going to kill them. Right. No, they have to use code. This is revelation.
I want to go back just a little bit.
Yeah.
And he causes... No, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Even further. It was given to him to give breath to the image of the beast so that the image of the beast would even speak and causes many who do not worship the image of the beast to be killed. I've read that I don't know how many times now. I've listened to it a bunch of times. As we're reading it right now, I immediately think of an argument you have made that this is referencing the Sanhedrin getting permission from Rome to give Paul letters to pursue the Christians. Yes,
actually, that's okay. So that's also
is
that's
that
in my notes. Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
No. I'm glad you highlighted that. So here's my quick definition of this. Right, dragon is Satan. The sea beast is Rome, epitomized in Nero, but Rome in general. And then this land beast is corrupt, the corrupt Jewish system, unfaithful Israel. It looks like a lamb. That's what it says. It looks like a lamb, but it sounds like the red dragon. It has 2 horns, and the authority is given from the red dragon. Given from the sea beast. Paul, when he was given authority from Jerusalem to go in prison and kill those in Damascus, a foreign city, he could only get that through Rome.
Right.
Jerusalem could not give him the authority to go persecute in Damascus. What he had to do is go to Jerusalem. They appealed to Rome. they said, yes, he can go, and then he was able to go. So and
he carries certificates of that authority with him.
Yep, and it falls right in line with what Paul did. So if we use Paul as the what do you call it, the archetype of unfaithful Israel, he literally did this. He got his power from the land beast, who got its power from the sea beast, who got its power, whose mission, what was it? To kill Christians, from the dragon. Right? So we see this epitomized in him. So verse 12 through 13 makes those who dwell in the land to worship the first beast. So remember, to perform great signs, fire from heaven. Do we remember fire coming down is the proclamation of the gospel, which we... in chapter 11, dealing with the two witnesses in the notes, it talks about
fire coming out
the fire coming out of their mouth. That's the proclamation of the gospel. So what did these two do? They proclaimed a false gospel. This proclamation of, hey, no, you got to do with the Jewish system. You got to do what we tell you to do. That's our gospel. You're saved by the law. Which again backs up to Galatians, these contrasting worldviews. Are we saved by the law, or are we saved by the promise? And so then they were given image of the beast, make an idol of Rome to worship and trust, be comfort, safety, and provision, right? Judaism was held in protection by Rome. Every other nation was assimilated into the Roman culture, except for Jews, except for Israel. Israel did have a semblance of protection and guard, an ability to operate autonomously, not necessarily. There were permissions from Rome, though.
Well, and that's that recognition throughout the centuries, throughout the Bible. You see this as kings and nations come against them. They recognize the God of this people. Even Rome, in its the great pantheon in Mecca, which is now the holy site for Islam, it was originally a Roman pantheon, and there they had altars to both Yahweh, to the Christ. Or, I'm sorry, not to the Christ, but to the unknown God of the Christians. Right. So whereas all other cultures became part of their pantheon. These two, Yahweh and Christ, were both separate somehow. They acknowledged their existence without including them in their own prayers.
Right. So, go ahead.
Well, just a final thought here. You see this in the crucifixion of Christ, right? Where Pilate asked them, do you want him, or do you want somebody else? And they said, do you want your king? We have no king but Caesar. Right. That's the cry of the leadership of Israel when given the opportunity to get Christ out of jail.
Yep.
We have no king but Caesar.
So this goes right exactly to this. And it was given to him to breathe. So think of atmosphere. That's what that concept is the atmosphere. It was given an atmosphere of the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast would even speak and cause as many as do not worship the image of the beast to be killed. And then it causes all the great and small, rich and poor, and the free and the enslaved to be given a mark on the right hand and on the left, and on their forehead. Okay. This is not QR codes. This is not barcodes. This is not credit cards. This is not checkbooks. This is not a tattoo.
Social security numbers.
This is not, what's the new thing? Chips. This is not a chip.
I don't know. I'm pretty convinced with that one.
Fine. This is...
It's Apple Pay.
He is quoting Deuteronomy, where it says, God's people will have a mark on their forehead and on their hand.
Right.
And what it's talking about is the mindset and actions of that people will represent its maker, will reflect its maker. So what is John saying here is the actions of this beast, this people, is given... It's going to be after Rome. It's going to be given the mark of their mindsets, and their actions will reflect Rome, whom they're empowered by. So this is not literal. This is symbolic, because even John in verse 18 says, "Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast." What he's saying is, this is a metaphor. And those of you who understand what I'm saying will understand what I'm saying. Right? Anyways, I could soapbox that all night long. Then I looked, and behold, the Lamb was standing on Mount Zion, and with him 140,000. Again, 144,000. His name and name of his father written on their foreheads. Right? So that we take metaphorical. But why the just previous verse is that literal with a barcode and whatever?
Well, because it's not scary. And nobody sells books on that one. Let's just call it out, right?
Let's get a tattoo, Phil. Put it right on our foreheads.
I don't ever want to work at a Starbucks, and that's a guaranteed way to do that.
Okay, first.
Is this the same 144,000 in the Watchtower?
No. I thought you were going to say the same 144,000 in chapter 7.
I am, right. But, I mean, you know.
So, faithful Israel. So I saw faithful Israel, right? Having his name and his father's written on their foreheads. And I heard a voice from heaven like a sound of many waters, like the sound of loud thunder, and voice which I heard was like the sound of harpists playing on their harps. And they sang a new song before the throne and before their four living creatures and the elders, and no one could learn the song except the 144,000. The only people who understood the song are the faithful Israel.
So this is not the righteous dead.
No, this is the 144,000, the great multitude of believers from every tribe, tongue, and nation. Okay? Right?
It's a small number to be a great multitude.
It's representative of every tribe, tongue, and nation.
Well,
a great multitude.
I thought we established it was a representative
numbering myriads of myriads.
Right, but the 144,000, right, is 12,000 from each tribe?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the remnant.
That's the symbolic. No. The 144,000 is a symbolic number representing the perfect, faithful Israel.
Okay.
Of the literal, right? John heard the number 144,000, then he saw a multitude upon multitude.
Myriads upon myriads and all that good stuff.
Every tribe, tongue, and nation. So then I saw 144,000. Oh, we're going back to the myriads of faithful followers.
I'm tracking.
Okay. And they sang a new song before the throne and before the four living creatures and the elders, and no one could learn the song except the 144,000 who had been purchased from the earth. These are the ones who have not been defiled with women, for they have kept themselves chaste. Again, this is symbolic of faithfulness, of sacrifice.
Yes.
Okay? These are the ones who will follow the Lamb wherever he goes. These have been purchased from among men as the first fruits of God to the Lamb, and no lie was found in their mouth. They are blameless. So he sees this picture of the 144,000 faithful, let's see here. Faithful Israel. They sang a new song. And let's see, not defiled by women, right? They're holy. And this is to contrast like unholiness or idolatry through adultery.
Yeah.
It's symbolic of those who have not committed idolatry through adultery. Like
Right.
That's
So like referring to like the temple prostitutes and the paganism, right?
Yeah.
And then the name of the Father written on their heads, that's the seal.
Right.
That went out, and the angel went down and he stamped everybody.
Right.
Approved.
But it's that idea of why their foreheads, because their mindset is focused on trusting the Lamb. They follow the Lamb wherever he goes.
And a good point here, actions aren't talked about.
Right.
It's no longer...
Well, follow.
Follow, yes. But I mean, it's not like, okay, stamp their head in their arms, right? It's no longer about the works.
Right. I always got to make sure that thing's still recording.
I bet your audience loves it. They're like, oh, he's looking at us again, breaking that fourth wall.
Verse 6, and I saw another angel flying in mid-heaven, having an eternal gospel to preach to those who live on the earth. This is where we break into the 6 messengers section. Mm-hmm. So again, remember, angel simply means messenger. And I saw another messenger flying in mid-heaven. This messenger 1 is the proclamation of the gospel. The gospel equals God's kingdom reigning. This is not simply forgiveness of sins, and it's not simply a future event. This is the proclamation of the gospel. And this is promised by Jesus, Matthew 24:14. Jesus says, "And the gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world." That word for world, Matthew 24:14, is oikomen, which means known inhabited world. Okay? Definition, 1st century, that's Rome.
Right. Paul, who clearly did not go to every nation in the world, still says, "I have proclaimed you to the world."
Colossians 1:6.
Right.
Yeah, and it says, "As a testimony to all nations, when then the end will come." So here's what Matthew 24 is saying, is when will the end come? Jesus says, "This gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come." This was fulfilled by Paul, and this was fulfilled by Peter. I know what you're saying. Haiti did not get the gospel at the time. It doesn't matter. They're talking to the 1st century audience who said, when the world, the whole inhabited land, Rome, as a testimony to all nations. That's a huge key point. Mm-hmm. It will be presented to Rome as a testimony to all nations. Then the end will come. So Paul, Colossians 1:6, Paul says, "The gospel which has come to you, as indeed in the whole world." Let's see. "It is bearing fruit and increase." See also Colossians 1:23, Matthew 24:14, 11, 31, sorry, 11, 31. Also, Eusebius church history, all of this dealing with Rome being the inhabited land, Rome being the world as the testimony that it's preached. Then the end will come. So as soon as Paul was able to preach in Rome, the capital.
Hey,
yeah.
Approximately what year was that, Nathan?
Oh my goodness, that was 66? 68?
Seems interesting.
Hold on. I got to go to cultivaterelationships.com to figure out the timetable of that.
Oh, that's right, because cultivaterelationships.com has a, it's not a diorama, that's the wrong word. It's a timeline, but what do you call it? There's a better name for it. What's that called?
Isn't it a timeline?
No, there's a better name for it.
Is there a better name?
There's an academic name for it, I'm sure.
Chronometer? No, I have no idea.
Chronometer.
Chronometer.
That's not it, but we're going to...
Making stuff up.
No, chronometer's a real thing. It's just not this.
Oh. So Paul was beheaded in January of 67 under the Neronian persecution.
And that would be approximately... that's 67. That's when... so 66, Jerusalem's surrounded. Mm-hmm. They defeat Gallus. All right, 67.
Rome backs off.
Well, it's not that they back off. They don't have anybody left. Survivors are running. But that's when Vespasian begins his march, right?
Yeah.
South. Culminating in that 5-month siege in Jerusalem.
Right. So
it's coincidental.
What I'm saying is, according to Paul, he fulfilled that prophecy. Mm-hmm. I don't want to understate this. Paul says he fulfilled the prophecy of Matthew 24:14, that Rome will be preached to, and this is a testimony to the world. Then the end will come. Paul in Colossians 1:6, I'm restating this, says, "It has come to you, as indeed in the whole world it's bearing fruit and increase. The gospel has been preached to the whole world," according to Paul. Mm-hmm. I know those of you out there who are like, yeah, but what about Madagascar and the Hoti Indians?
The what?
Aren't they Hopi? Hopi Indians.
In New Mexico?
In New Mexico. What about New Mexico?
Trust me.
And Hawaii.
They've heard it. They didn't like it.
What I'm saying, though, is us Americans, us Westerners, love literal. We cannot comprehend figurative language. And this is what the New Testament's been written in, is figurative language. Right. So Paul says, listen, I preached to Rome. It's done. The gospel's spread as a fulfillment of the prophecy of Jesus. Okay. I'm done.
8.
Verse 8. Oh,
and another angel, a second one following, saying, Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great, she who made all the nations drink of the wine of the passions of her immorality.
Now, what is Babylon in dispensationalism?
Oh, I'm pretty sure it's America.
No. I thought it was Rome.
No.
Most commentaries, hey, in all seriousness, most commentaries say Babylon is Rome. What?
I'm just trying to think how Rome would be applicable in a futuristic view.
Because they cross-reference it with Peter. Let me see here. Babylon fell, she who. This is a... yeah. Anyways.
Maybe is it represents the Catholic Church?
Oh, that's another good one. I like that one. Okay. It doesn't. Babylon does not mean any of that.
No, it's Israel.
It's Israel. Babylon is fallen equals Israel equals the great or the great city. Remember chapter 11, verse 8?
Right, figuratively called Sodom or Egypt.
Yep.
In that text, because we're talking about plagues and we're talking...
Correct.
So it's all tying in. It's going to tie in again in just a moment.
Yes. So Babylon is fallen. Jerusalem has fallen. Verse 9.
And another angel, a third one, followed, saying with a loud voice, if anyone worships the beast in his image and receives a mark on his forehead or upon his hand, he also will drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is mixed in full strength in the cup of his anger, and he will be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. Can we keep going?
Well, okay, let me rephrase it this way. It's against those who commit willful rebellion against God in the presence of God and his people. Right? Holy ones forever and ever. This is figurative language, meaning complete destruction of God's enemies. Which, talk about justice, right? These are what the martyrs under the altar are crying out for is, hey, when will you vindicate us? And that's what this is talking about, 9 through 12. And I heard a voice from heaven saying, right, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. Yes, says the Spirit, so that they may rest from their labors and from their deeds, and their deeds follow with them. So again, this does not make sense if this is a future reality. Because once Jesus comes back, there's no more death, right? Mm-hmm. But how can that be when it says from now on when people die?
This part of the story is before Jesus comes back. Even in the future view.
No, but that's so...
7 years,
it's
exactly.
It's so arbitrary. This is so dumb. This view is so infuriating because it's like, I'm just going to put definitions willy-nilly however I want to slap it on there to make my view right. It's so dumb. Sorry, it's late. I'm tired, and it just frustrates me that people can't cross-reference. And I heard a voice from heaven saying, right, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. Yes, says the Spirit, so that they may rest from their labors, for their deeds will follow them. What? This is a hope-filled statement, echoing what Paul says, that... the sting of death. Oh, sting or death.
Oh, death, where's your sting?
Right? Paul is saying, death doesn't matter now.
Right.
It. You know what? We're all gonna die, and for those of us who are Christians, it doesn't matter. You're good. You're gonna be with God. Dare I say, quoting Isaiah, there will be no more death, which I'm going to get into that phrase when we come to the new heavens and new earth. Then I looked, verse 14. Moving on. And behold, a white cloud, and sitting on the cloud was like a son of man.
One like a son of man.
One like the son of man. Whose favorite reference was son of man?
That'd be Christ.
That'd be Jesus.
Jesus, yep. Right.
You're right with Christ. Different, whatever. Anyways, having a golden crown on his head and a sharp sickle in his hand, and another messenger came out of the temple. Remember? Heaven temple, which is the true temple. Mm-hmm. Coming out of the true temple in heaven. That's my addition. Crying out with a loud voice to him who sat on the cloud, put in your sickle and reap, for the hour to reap has come, because the harvest is ripe. Then he who sat on the cloud swung his sickle over the earth, and the earth was reaped. Another angel. I forget which angel this one is.
It was 4 or 5?
Yeah. Vengeance, right? This is 6. Oh, 6. Verse 17. And another angel came out of the temple, which is in heaven. I'm not making this stuff up. This is literally two sentences down. Temple in heaven. I said verse, what is it? Verse 15. I said that's the temple in heaven.
This isn't a new temple?
Knock it off. We're reading no, it's not. And he also had a sharp sickle. Then another angel, another messenger with power over fire came out from the altar. Again, in heaven, came out from the altar. And he called with a loud voice to him who had the sharp sickle, saying, put in your sharp sickle and gather the clusters from the vine of the earth, because her grapes are ripe. Verse 19, so the angel swung his sickle to the earth and gathered the clusters of the vine of the earth and threw them into the great winepress of the wrath of God. And the winepress was trodden outside the city, and blood came out of the winepress up to the horse's bridle for a distance of 200 miles. A lot of death and carnage. Let's back up. Let's zoom out so we're not confused and stuck in the weeds of the details. Death and carnage. If you read Josephus' account of what happened in Jerusalem at that destruction, it was carnage.
Well, and that's a point we really haven't talked about, but for those that are interested, we didn't dive into the heads or the hills or the.
We will in 17.
Okay, we're putting this off till 17.
Yeah,
but right after the siege of Jerusalem is laid for the second time, General Vespasian runs back to Rome to put his claim in to be emperor, and his son Titus takes over, and he takes the most battle hardened, trained soldiers with him. He takes his 4 legions with him, and he leaves his son with a mercenary force. These men are not as well trained. More importantly, they're not as well disciplined. And so some of the pictures here with the angels coming out of the temple in heaven, well, there was still a temple there, right? And ultimately, the final, when the temple is taken and burned, that was the end. Yep. It went from a resistance to a slaughter.
Yep.
And he lost control of these troops, and every design he had for the city was undone because they burned and they sacked and they killed.
He wanted to save the temple to worship in it.
Right, for personal gain, right?
Worship his god in
Worship
it.
his god, right? To set up an altar to Zeus or whatever the Roman equivalent is.
Basically to say, hey, I triumphed over your God.
Exactly.
My God won your.
Exactly, and that's not what happened. God obliterates it all. But they also wanted to preserve the city because Jerusalem was such a wealthy trade hub.
Yeah.
For it connects Asia with Africa and Europe.
We'll get there in 19. No, you're saying all these accurate things. You're not wrong. But John goes into detail as to why this is Jerusalem. You're not wrong. I'm just cutting you off because of time. Like, it's been like 7.5 hours. I'm sorry. I love you, Phil. It's so funny because you have all these details and you're not wrong.
You're good.
I feel bad for cutting.
Some of it's in the notes and you're skipping
it. Is it really?
Some of it is.
No.
Not that part, but some of it is.
Okay. Well, anyways,
right, wrap it up. I'm gonna
listen.
Sit idle. I didn't know we were doing this chapter. I thought we were stopping in 13.
13?
I know.
It
doesn't have to make sense.
Revelation 12 through 14, big idea. All right? No matter what we face, the enemy does not have power or authority in our lives. God works all things out for our good, for all who trust him. He wins every situation. He wins every circumstance. The hard part, like he says throughout Revelation, hey, suffering will come, right? You may feel like a captive. In fact, you may even die because of the testimony of Jesus. Right? That's what 12, what we read in 12.
Right.
But listen, if you trust that that's not the end, God will have vindication for you. God will he will be revealed as righteous. He will be revealed as good. Here's the hard part is I cannot define what good looks like. Right? I can't take Webster's dictionary and go, how is me being born with a disease good? I can't take Webster's dictionary and look at a miscarriage and go, how is that good? I have to go, God, you know what? I gotta depend upon you. The John 10:10 test. The thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but you have come that I might have life abundant, an overflowing life. And that's true submission. That's really what it's about, is am I willing to lay down my definitions of good for what is ultimately good? Here's a really pithy example, okay? My daughters think having Coke at midnight before bed, first of all, don't ask me why they're staying up till midnight, okay? Separate discussion. Is good. Like, they'll be like, Coke is good.
Ugh.
Oh, actually, a real story. So the other day, literally yesterday, Ari had coffee all day, all the way up into 9 o'clock.
What were you thinking?
I was teaching. What is my wife who should be in charge of the children? I blame her. Anyways, Ari stays up till like 11:30 midnight, right? I'm in bed by now, but I get up to go to the bathroom or whatever, and I still see she's up.
Yeah.
Today, I wanted to bring back the law of rebellious children against their parents. Like, oh, the vindication that I would have with stones and...
Oh my God.
So...
I just had that conversation with my children about what the law says about rebellious children. And my daughter's like, God is so mean. And I was like, I know, right?
Should we try it? No. So here's the point. My daughter thought having coffee at 9 o'clock was good. It was not. And I think this is a pithy story to explain real trauma and tragedy, and I don't mean to minimize that. But what I'm saying is, from an eternal perspective, am I willing to go, you know what, God? I'm going to lay down my definition of what I think good should be in this space and trust you that you know ultimately what is good.
Well, and exactly. I mean, the story that comes to my mind immediately is Lazarus, right?
Yeah.
You know, was it good for Lazarus to die? You know, I guess there's some comfort knowing that, hey, my life is to point to this miracle of Christ. Obviously, he didn't know that.
Right. His sisters didn't know that at the time.
And possibly...
Even Jesus
may not have known.
Right.
Because, right, it says he wept. There was no perceivable good in that moment until what? Until Christ called his name, Lazarus, come out. And then everyone saw the good.
And I think what happens, Phil, is we look at our lives... And I'm going to use the analogy of Jesus' death on likely a Thursday, not a Friday. I call it the we look at our lives in the light of Saturday.
Yeah.
That we look at our lives as like, yeah, but this is dead. And Jesus looks at our lives as, yeah, but Sunday's coming. Hey, Sunday will come. Will you trust me in this?
Well, even what Scott was just saying on Sunday, which... I'm so sorry I missed any discussion that happened on Sunday because I enjoyed that sermon. But even that thought, you know, the 11 are up on the mountain and still.
Oh, my goodness.
And still, Thomas, right, is doubting.
Scott and I did a podcast today on that.
Oh, awesome.
Dude, you should.
Look forward to it.
It's a fun one, yeah. But it's basically that point, like, after everything that was said and done, you still don't believe?
Right.
And I actually, you know what, I'm going to tease it here? I'm going to link it. You know what? I'm going to link it.
There you go. What's the point of technology if you don't use it?
Exactly. The podcast that we filmed today, which you're going to be listening to multiple weeks afterwards, Scott and I were talking. I have a theory as to specifically why they doubted. I'm going to put that in the details in the link below.
Okay, do that.
A podcast.
But even in your own life, you know, as you know, you've counseled me as I've come through. To me, arguably, what are some horrifically tragic circumstances in my own life, and someone else may look at them and go, "Oh, that wasn't that big of a deal."
But we can't compare.
But you can't compare. But either way, but at no point as I'm walking through that could anybody have told me there's good.
Right.
Right. Looking back, I can see where God was, but looking forward, well, maybe you used it up back there, right? There's a little bit of that.
But I think that's why Israel had to have remembering stones throughout their land.
Absolutely.
Because they kept forgetting. And God goes,
Common theme.
will you please write down what I've done for you and tell it to your kids? And you know what? Set up a bunch of stones just so they're like, what does that mean? And you could go, oh man, I was an idiot.
Putting rocks in my kids' rooms now.
Not to wall them in.
Oh. I thought that was a 2 birds, 1 stone kind of thing.
All right.
All right.
We got to go. Goodbye.